Hi there, welcome to my channel. I'm Jennifer. This is A Country Life, and a couple of weeks ago I put up on my channel a video of like basically meals of the week, but I did a couple crock pot meals. I did an Instant Pot meal if I'm not mistaken, and then just some, you know, basic stovetop meals. And that video really went over well. You guys really responded to it well, and I thought, let's do another one of those. I still have some crock pot meals. This is a brand new recipe today. Haven't ever tried it, but I've wanted to try it for a while, so let's go for it. It is another recipe out of this cookbook here. This is the Fix It and Forget It Slow Cooker Dump Dinners and Desserts. I have a lot of things marked in this one that I want to try. So beef with broccoli, and over top of the beef in the crock pot, I need beef broth, soy sauce, brown sugar, sesame oil, garlic, and then the meat, and later on some cornstarch and broccoli. The cornstarch will be to thicken it up, make it a little more gravy-like, and then the broccoli, you know, you have to add your veggie. And so anyway, it sounds to me a little bit like a Korean beef type of a thing. In my crock pot, which is set to low right now, I have, it's like partially frozen. I have some beef. It's just about 2 pounds. It is actually beef. We are getting very low on our venison, and so I did pick up some packages of beef just because I wanted to, and this is already sliced really thin. In here I already have 1 cup of beef broth. I have the half a cup of soy sauce. I'm going to be adding in the brown sugar, the sesame oil, and the garlic cloves. So now I have the cover on, and this is going to go on low for 5 to 6 hours. It's 11:16 right now, and so that should be just about perfect for supper time tonight. Before I move on with the day, I wanted to just walk you through a few of the recipes from this cookbook that I have tried so far. So the beef vegetable soup, that was in the last video. It is so good. The mixed vegetables that they used must have had either some, I don't know if that's kale or some sort of chard. I did not do that. My mixed vegetables that I used was just some frozen green beans. That was delicious. I also made the ham and bean stew. That was not my favorite at all. I mentioned before, I feel like it was just the baked beans just gave it an odd flavor to me anyway. Like I said, Joseph ate it. Warren actually ate it. I mean, and he had a second bowl like the next day. So I don't know. I didn't even really finish my first one. I do think that this recipe would be fine if these 2 cans of baked beans were just simply a couple cans of navy beans. I would like to make this one yet. I have this earmarked here, potato and corn chowder. That sounded absolutely delicious to me. This one sounded good, salsa ranch chicken with black beans. The balsamic chicken, haven't made that one yet, but it sounded good. This one I made, this was very good. I really liked this one, the cranberry onion turkey breast. I made this in that last video too. We served it, yeah, I think with mashed potatoes, probably just similar to this, mashed potatoes and green beans. It was very good. Oh, and I think I made some stovetop stuffing to go with that. Harvest is all done, and it's bow season. Warren is out bow hunting right now, and I thought it would be a treat if I made cranberry cake. So this recipe is in my cookbook on page 49. And I don't ever make the caramel sauce. Warren actually prefers it without the caramel sauce, but I know a lot of people like this because this is what gives the cake kind of a little bit more of like a gooey texture, because you would put this caramel sauce, which is actually very runny. It's not a thick caramel sauce. It's just a runny, sweet, buttery, caramely sauce. You'd put that over top of the cake. It kind of soaks in, and it makes it very soft and everything. But that's not how he likes it. So how we do it is just make the cake all by itself. I just have a pie plate. I sprayed it with vegetable spray. In my KitchenAid, I have 1 cup of white sugar. I have 2 ooh, that's hot. Okay, I'm not going to pick that up like that. I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm also, when I put the camera down, I'm going to scrape that last little bit of butter out of there. I'm going to get this mixing. We're going to put in 1 egg. I like to keep a washcloth, even if it's just a dry one, to wipe my hands on. So it's a 1/2 cup of milk, 2 cups of flour, and then baking powder. Don't want to make that mistake again. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. A lot of recipes call for mixing the dry ingredients. Usually what I do is just fluff my flour. Any of the other ingredients like baking powder or baking soda or a pinch of salt, I just sprinkle kind of evenly over the top of the flour. Then when I mix it, I figure that mixes it in nicely. I actually have fresh cranberries right now, but I prefer to use the frozen one just to use up my, use up the oldest cranberries first. I find that putting this in a pie plate just seems to spread it out just enough so that it can cook all the way through without getting too dark. I have found that if I put it into a square pan, sometimes it has to bake too long and it gets really, really dark. I'm going to put this in at 375 degrees for about 35 to 45 minutes. I decided that I'm going to make some muffins as well, cranberry muffins. And this is a recipe again that's in my cookbook. It's on page 41 right here, cranberry muffins. It's really chock full of like autumn type flavors. There's nutmeg and cinnamon and ginger and orange peel, just all those yummy things. So first into this bowl, I have 2 cups of flour, a cup of sugar, 1½ teaspoon baking powder. Is that better? I just put a little light on the subject here. A teaspoon of nutmeg. I really like nutmeg. If you don't, I know that nutmeg is one of those flavors that a lot of people don't like in large quantities. Just leave it out or just put a little teeny tiny bit in if you want to. What do we have here, Maria Jean? We have a cat in a basket, huh? A teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then I need a couple of teaspoons of grated orange peel. I have this orange zester and it just seems to work fine. So that's what I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to zest this whole orange. I'm just going to give this a stir to mix up all those spices into the flour and sugar. It also coats that orange zest, and so then the orange zest kind of stays, I guess you could, I don't know if you can call it in suspension because this is a dry mixture, but it helps to keep it kind of evenly distributed. I guess that's a better way. It keeps it evenly distributed throughout. I need about a 1/2 cup of shortening, and I'm just going to get that cut into the dry mixture. Years ago, I had a pastry blender, and it might have been, I want to say it could have been Tupperware. I'm not sure, but anyway, it was like a real hard plastic, and it just got brittle. If it was Tupperware, it probably had been my mom's from the 70s, and it cracked, and I just never replaced it. I always thought I might. I just kind of always feel like a fork just does the job. I mean, there we go. Look at that. I have that cut in. Bring out another Tupperware dish from the 70s. And in here, I'm going to put 3/4 cup orange juice, so I'm going to squeeze this. I just have to tell you quick because my battery is dying and I actually don't think I have another one charged. So I'm going to do 3/4 cup of orange juice. I'll squeeze this, add some water to it, and that will be the orange juice. 2 eggs, a tablespoon of vanilla. I'm going to get all of that mixed up in here, and then I'm going to pour it into the dry ingredients along with cranberries. I'm not going to chop the cranberries. I'm also going to add in some pecans. My recipe says that this makes 18 muffins. I'm pretty sure today it's going to make more. I'm kind of making them a little bit on the smaller side. If Warren and I have an egg or 2 for breakfast and then we want to have a muffin, I want them to be kind of small so it's not like such an enormous breakfast. And then when it's time, these muffins are going to go in at 350 degrees for about 17 minutes. Whatever a muffin recipe says, I always like to set it for 2, maybe even 3 minutes less, and check it then. 17 minutes, I'm going to set my timer for 15, even though it's my recipe and my oven. I'm still going to set it for a little bit less, just in case. Here is the cranberry cake. You can see how along the edge it does get quite golden brown, And then in the middle, it's still a little bit lighter, but I gave it a little touch, and I can tell that it's cooked all the way through. That's really the key. You don't want it to be like, you know, gummy. What I did is I had this on my middle rack for, let's see, I set the timer for 35 minutes. I had it on the middle rack for 31 minutes. The last 4 minutes I put it up to the top rack just to make sure that this top kind of center was getting done nicely. And now I have the muffins in. I guess I don't necessarily have to show you or open it up, but the muffins are in. I had my timer set for 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, I did switch the pans around, put them in for 2 more minutes. So just like in my cookbook, 17 minutes turned out to be the perfect amount of time. I'm just going to give these about 2 minutes or so to cool in the pan, and then I will remove them to a wire rack, let them cool all the way, and a dozen of them I'm going to put aside in the freezer once they're completely cool for our little vacation coming up, and the rest we can eat this week. In the meantime, I did add the broccoli to my crock pot here. This was broccoli from the garden from actually 2020. I had it frozen in our deep freeze, and so I just tore the bag off and put the whole block right in there, and I'm just letting it cook down. And I'm hoping that that works out really well, because I don't like, one thing I have found with blanching and freezing the garden broccoli, if I thaw it all the way and then I try to warm it up, it just gets like almost too mushy. I don't mind it if I'm making a broccoli and cheese soup, something like that, but to just have it plain with butter or salt, I don't like it like that. So I'm kind of hoping that putting the whole frozen block right into the crock pot, it'll just like slowly warm it and then not be overcooked. I don't know. We'll see. If you have any tips about freezing broccoli and then thawing it to use actually as like a side dish of just broccoli, not in a casserole or something, share that in the description box. I'd really appreciate any kind of like pointers that you have for that. Start with rice and then put the beef with broccoli on top. I actually upped this to 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and it still didn't thicken up the way I was hoping it would. It's pretty liquidy. I was hoping it would be a little bit more gravy-like to put over the rice, but it's gonna work.
That's it.
I know.
That's our treats. Guys,
What's
let's
the
go.
beef stuff with the vegetables?
Stir fry?
Yeah, beef stir fry.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to put salad out, Joe?
Yeah, set it.
We finished up with supper, and I wanted to just give you a really quick review on this because it is a brand new recipe. I liked the meat. I liked how the broccoli, starting with that frozen like chunk of broccoli, that actually worked really well. It wasn't overcooked and mushy. It was just right. The thing about the meat though that I would have to say, or actually about the sauce, is I really wanted it spicier. I kind of like, I think it's Kung Pao chicken or Kung Pao beef, you know, at a Chinese restaurant. Warren likes that kind of thing too. I mean, obviously looking at the ingredients, it didn't have anything spicy. I would have liked it to be spicy. So I would next time, because I would make this again, but I would add a half a teaspoon of black pepper. I would also put in probably a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and then we could always add some more red pepper flakes at the end. So I think that addition would make it really, really good. I really liked using the juice over the rice. That was delicious. Warren really liked the juice over the rice, but we both said it needed to be spicy. Tonight I'm making a recipe out of this cookbook here. I was gifted this recipe after a lady passed away. Her daughter had a number of the same cookbooks and she didn't need duplicates, and she thought, I know who I'll give them to, and so she gave them to me. So the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of rice. It says to have it washed. So I washed 3/4 cup. I believe this is actually jasmine rice. This is the last rice I have in the house. I'm just gonna kind of spread this out. That does not look like very much rice. And then it calls for 2 chicken bouillon cubes and 2 cups of boiling water. I have just regular hot water here with 2 teaspoons of Knorr chicken seasoning in. I'm gonna pour that over the rice according to the recipe. Then the recipe calls for chicken cut up in serving pieces. So I would imagine that means a whole chicken cut up into serving pieces. I actually have just a pack of legs here. I thought this would work just fine. And I'm gonna put the whole entire thing in here, and that is why I thought I would use this larger pan. It then calls for sprinkling paprika, salt, and pepper over the chicken pieces. The recipe calls for 1 can of cream of chicken, 1 can cream of mushroom, 1 small can of mushrooms with 3 to 4 tablespoons of the mushroom juice. Well, I don't have mushrooms. Honestly, I don't even like mushrooms. And so what I'm gonna do is just add in 3 to 4 tablespoons, probably 4 tablespoons of plain water. So I added that water in. I'm just gonna stir this up and I'm gonna pour this over top of the chicken. Well, I'm starting to second guess the amount of salt when I sprinkled salt and pepper and paprika over this. I'm wondering if that was going to be a little too much because I kind of made sure I got salt on each piece of chicken. Then it says to sprinkle over a dry onion soup mix packet. The recipe calls for baking it at 350 for 1 hour uncovered, and then I'm going to put aluminum foil over it, turn the temp down to 250, and bake it for another half an hour. Well, can you hear the music in the background? The kids happened to find Little House on the Prairie on TV this afternoon. I brought the chicken out of the oven. I took the foil off. I checked it with a fork and a meat thermometer. It's completely done. It seems very, very tender in there, and it smells delicious. I'm really looking forward to this. I want to get a peek at the rice. I think the rice is just kind of, there's not much rice. So I'm going to actually quick make up some instant mashed potatoes, and I think the gravy part that's in here we'll just put over instant mashed potatoes. I'm going to put this back in the oven with the oven turned off just to stay warm until we're ready to eat.
Thanks, Daddy.
You're welcome.
Dear.
You want your tail, Smear?
No.
Maria, why don't you come get some rice?
I've been having a taste for something cheesecakey or cream cheese. I just have. And so out of the same homemaker cookbook that I found last night's supper recipe, which, by the way, was absolutely delicious. If you've been around my channel for a while, you have probably laughed a time or two at Maria's plate. She took an entire chicken leg and ate the whole thing and said, "Mom, that is so good." And when I was just questioning the family, "Oh, is this something you guys would like me to make again?" Warren's like, "Yeah, I really like that chicken." And Maria was like, "Yeah, make that again." So I count that as a big, big win. So this was a recipe I earmarked, I think, probably this summer or something like that, and I just never made it. So cream cheese bars. I have in my bowl right now here, I have 1 cup of flour, a 1/3 cup of butter that I kind of cubed up, a 1/2 cup of walnuts, and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and I'm just going to start mixing that up, kind of cutting it together with my fork. I feel like if I were to make these again, depending on how these turn out, that I would just do the flour, the sugar, and the butter, and then I would put the nuts in because it's really hard to cut in when you have those hard nuts. This is a 7 by 11 pan. The recipe calls for 7 by 9, but I just didn't really have that size. And this is the smallest glass baking dish I have. So it says to put half in the pan. I need a little bit more. And to save half of it as crumbs to put on top. It says to press this in. So I'm going to press this down pretty firm here. And then I have to bake this at 325 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes. I need to beat 1 package of cream cheese. And I have 2 half packages here. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, 2 half packages. So the recipe just says to mix until smooth the cream cheese, lemon juice, and egg, sugar, vanilla, and milk. So what I'm going to do first is just the cream cheese and the sugar. Get that mixed up well. Then I'll add those other liquidy type of ingredients. I'll blend again. I'm putting in the 2 tablespoons of lemon juice And I'm just going to keep mixing after each ingredient to make sure that this stays really smooth and doesn't get kind of a weird lumpiness. A teaspoon of vanilla. And 2 tablespoons of milk. The recipe does suggest doubling this if you want it to go into a 9x13 pan. Originally, that's what I was going to do, and I thought, you know what, let's just start with the regular recipe, see how it goes before I start monkeying around with it. I scraped the sides once or twice between mixing. Now I'm just going to let it sit here until the crust is done baking.
Whoa, tighter.
Okay, I'm going to put this back into the oven, still at 325, for another 17 to 23 minutes. At 17 minutes, it looks done to me. I guess I would have thought that maybe this like little powdery topping would have maybe kind of all gotten more like this, where it kind of like soaked in almost and got a little bit more golden brown. Anyway, it didn't, and I feel like if it was in longer, then it's going to get overcooked, and you know, you don't want overcooked cheesecake. So anyway, it smells really good. Looking forward to trying this tonight. Well, it is 5 after 5, and Emily and Sparky and the kids are coming over, and Emily and I have a little sewing project to work on, and so I said, why don't you guys just come over and have supper? I have 8, which is going to be exactly 1 per person. That's just how it is. So I have 8 of these center cut pork chops. And a while back, I got a really nice note in my P.O. box from a brand new company, But That Chicken. They just said that they had enjoyed watching my channel and that this was like their family business, and they wanted me to give this a try. So they sent me some of their chicken breading mix. They have a hot and spicy version as well, but tonight we're just going to use regular. And it says on here, for poultry, meats, seafood, and vegetables. So we are going with the meats for tonight. The note that they sent did say to follow the directions carefully and that you would get the best results doing that. So I'm just going to read over. Let's see, we have baking and air fryer. Nope, we are going to do frying directions. So follow steps 1 through 3 and then deep or pan fry at 350. Okay, so I have my big electric skillet. Come on, focus, focus, focus. It's trying. I think it doesn't like that glass lid. I have my big electric skillet here. I'm going to put about 1/4 to 3/8 inch of oil in the bottom, probably close to 3/8 inch of oil in the bottom. Get that hot, and then we're going to follow the directions and do what we need to do to get these pork chops going. Oh boy, my apron is looking awfully dirty. It's time to get this in the wash. So the back of the package says to mix 5 tablespoons of the But That chicken breading with a 1/2 cup of water in 1 little container. So I have a couple pie plates here. Okay, this says this is the original, not the hot and spicy, and I would say it already has a good spice to it. Just mixing it kind of... Oh yeah! Let me double check. Nope, this is just the seasoned. Wow, this has a little spice to it. And then it says to just put some dry mix in another shallow dish, just about as much as you think you're going to need. First dip into the liquid and then roll it back and forth into the dry, and then deep fry. That's what they look like frying, and so I'm just going to set my timer for probably 6 minutes, and then I will turn them and see how they're looking at that point. I'm just frying everything here tonight. I have my great big cast iron. I think this is like a, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 inch, something like that cast iron. And I just have a bag of these frozen hash browns, and I'm going to get these going. But I'd better get out my splatter screen first. I'm just going to salt and pepper the potatoes, and I like to just follow the directions that are right on the bag. It says to heat it up over medium-high heat. I have my timer set for 5 minutes, and then I will flip them over and Do it for 5 minutes again. All right. Yep, take some potatoes. We're serving up here. We have the fried potatoes.
Mom,
Pork and beans. What, honey?
I want to talk.
You want to talk. Okay, talk to us.
Sam has make cookie, so it's like powdered sugar, chocolate chips, and if it is so good, has pork chops.
I know, we're having pork chops. You better go put a pork chop on that plate.
Bye!
Get a pork chop. So this is the new seasoning, but that chicken, it says it can be used on other meats, seafood, vegetables, so we're giving it a try. This is the regular. Nice plate, Joe. Okay, go sit down. Okay, we've got a full house again here. And we've got, look at this, Legos and supper all at the same time. Emily, you're pretty talented.
He'll just eat all of mine. I'll sit there on the corner.
Peter's got some pork and beans. Look at that. Tonight for supper, it's super, super easy. It's actually the day that we came home from our vacation. I had a tater tot casserole in the freezer. When I was unpacking, I saw that and I was like, I'm gonna bring that up. So I just brought it up, I set it on top of the stove, and then I just put foil over it, put it in the oven at 300 degrees for the whole time we were at gymnastics. Then when we got home, I just turned it up to 400, took the foil off, and let it bake, continue baking until the tater tots are like nice and crunchy the way we like it. And then Emily actually had forgotten to take a salad mix home with her. We didn't need this one when we were for supper. She had made a big spaghetti supper for us on Saturday night of vacation, and we just didn't need the salad mix. So anyway, I'm making up that salad. So thanks, Emily. And let me just show you, there's my tater tot casserole getting all crunchy crispy. Yummy, yummy. Are you happy to be home, Joe?
Yeah. And then Evie, she's going to be a race car driver.
Have some salad.
She has the outfit and stuff.
Do you want cheese on your salad?
They're going to make.
Okay. Maria, you need to serve up too, okay?
Okay.
We were in a huge hurry last night to eat supper and get out the door. I didn't film. All we had was, we laughed, we had bread and cheese, and then we had cheese and bread. So we had grilled cheese, and I just had pepper jack, Colby jack, cheddar, that kind of thing. Some of them though, like for Warren and myself and Sam, I put tomato and onion in it, and it just seemed a little bit more of a fancier, I guess, grilled cheese. And then we just had some cheese sticks, so that would just be those Farm Rich cheese sticks. Get them in the air fryer. And that was good for last night because it was fast, it was easy, it didn't make a whole lot of dishes, and so we didn't come home to an enormous mess, you know, when we had to leave and be gone for the whole night. So anyway, tonight I'm making Amber's creamy potato soup. This is a recipe that Amber found somewhere online years and years ago, and she brought it to me and said, Mom, can you make this? It's really just a dump and go soup. I have my 3-quart crock pot, and what I have here is 3.5 cups of water. That is equivalent to 2 14-ounce cans of chicken broth. And I just have a couple teaspoons, I think I actually have 3 teaspoons of Knorr chicken soup base in here. I'm going to pour this over. I'm going to add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup. Oh, excuse me, there was a little hiccup. Cream of chicken soup. And then I have about 1/2 cup of chopped onion. A good amount of black pepper. I just give it a stir, and then I'm going to set it to low, and I'm going to let this go for the rest of the afternoon. It's about 11:30 right now, and so it does say it should go for 4 to 6 hours on low, and then I will put in the cream cheese like in the last half an hour, just to get that it just needs to be in there long enough for it to get nice and melty so you can stir it in. And we've got ourselves a pumpkin. Very cute, Peter. I like it. Yeah. I'm also going to show you a cookie recipe today. These are called sugared marble cookies, and they're actually out of a cookbook that is kind of like all about Christmas and everything. I checked out from the library, and I found this recipe, and I thought, I'm going to give this a try. So I have 1 cup of shortening and 1 cup of white sugar. I whipped it and whipped it until it was just like real fluffy and it didn't seem super grainy. Now I just put in an overflowing teaspoon of vanilla, an overflowing teaspoon of almond extract. I'm going to crack in 1 egg, and then I'm going to keep blending until it's light and fluffy.
What marbles then?
Chocolate marbles them. So I'm adding 2 cups of flour, all-purpose flour, and then I have a teaspoon each of salt, baking soda, and cream of tartar. In the old days, when you opened up a box of unsweetened chocolate, it was wrapped into little squares. Each of those squares equaled an ounce. Well, a lot of recipes, especially if you find an older recipe, it may just say 2 squares of chocolate or 3 squares of unsweetened chocolate. And so just know that a square equals 1 ounce, and then you can plan accordingly. So this recipe actually just says 1 ounce baking chocolate melted. And when I first read it, I thought it actually said unsweetened, but it doesn't. So anyways, I have unsweetened chocolate. I think it's still gonna be fine because there is a whole cup of sugar in this dough. And so what I did is I just melted it. So right in the microwave, 30 seconds, and then just do it in quick 10-second intervals and stir. Otherwise it will burn. And burnt chocolate is one of those smells that will never ever leave you. So I'm just gonna scrape my beater, get all the dough off and into the bowl. Okay, so we're just gonna drizzle this over, and then I will cut it in with a knife. 1 ounce isn't a lot, so I'm going to make sure to get every last little bit. So there we go, that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm cutting it in. I'm just kind of sliding the knife through. These went in the oven at 400 degrees for 8 minutes. The recipe said 8 to 10 minutes. And oh my goodness, I let them sit on the pan for a couple minutes like I always do. And they're still very, very warm, and they're still soft. When they cool, I'm pretty certain these are going to be kind of one of those like crisp edge, chewy center cookies when it cools. But I'm looking forward to trying one. Which one do you want to try, Joe? One of these from the back that are more cool? Okay, you try it and tell us what you think. That's good? You like it? Okay. Typically with this soup, I would put the cream cheese in only about 30 to 45 minutes beforehand, but I ended up putting it in earlier today just because we had to be out of the house for a while, and I wanted it to have enough time to soften and completely get mixed in. And then I just use my potato masher and I kind of mash it. You can see there's still some chunks in here. And then I have green onions diced up, some bacon bits, and not the butter. That we don't need that. We need the cheese. I need to get the cheese out, and then we will be ready for supper.